Hi guys, Gareth here from Heartfelt Horsemanship. I want to talk about equipment to get started on the Heartfelt program, or what we'd recommend for most natural horsemanship programs. We work with a rope halter and a nice thick solid working line. Between 14 and 16 millimeters of the yachting braid working line is great. Don't aim for getting as light as possible. I've seen people actually take out the core of these ropes and it just gets too light. You actually can't get any rhythm with the rope. And a lot of the beginnings of our program is based on rhythmic pressure, and you cannot get any rhythm with a rope that's had all the weight taken out of it. And seriously, if a rope like this is too heavy for you, you maybe need a workout program before you even ride a horse. You're not fit enough. Okay, so in terms of why we use a rope halter as opposed to what we call a creek halter, the only place they do any good is in the creek. What people call a flat halter, a nylon halter, or even the leather halter. The flat halters stay close along the horse all the time and looks really neat, but they have an amount of pressure exerted the whole time, and when you go to actually pick up on them, there is no pressure exerted. With the rope halter, it is the epitome of our principle of as gentle as possible but as firm as necessary. When you're not activating this, there is no pressure. When you do activate it, these knots hit on the trigeminal nerve so you can be as effective as possible without having to get hard and really yank on them. So it's very effective. There's a narrow line at the pole here. We don't encourage people to do the braiding on the nose band, because it does the same thing as a flat halter, where it's actually putting constant pressure there and dulling your horse. I get my halters from Sonia Krobler, who posts countrywide. If you want her details, just drop us a message and I'll send them through. I prefer, Sonia's got a bunch of options. She can do the braided noseband, but if you tell her that you're getting from Heartfelt, she will give you one of these ones. And my preference is a rope without a carabiner, especially if you're just getting started on a horse that's quite heavy on the halter, because when we're doing the rhythmic pressure, we don't want that carabiner clunking them on the lower jaw. Now for the more advanced horses, I don't mind, because they're responding at the light phase, they're not getting whacked in the chin. Okay, and in terms of length of rope, I work with a 22-foot line, which is about 7 meters, 7 and a bit meters, purely because then I don't have to carry another rope. But it's a lot of rope to get used to, so if you want to start off with a 12-foot rope, that will do the trick. Then, in terms of saddles, I'm not going to discuss English saddles, it's not my forte, but we get a lot of questions about people wanting to get into Western and asking about local saddles. If you have the money, go for a fancy import. Garland Equine bring in some fantastic saddles. But no matter what, unless you're getting some from someone reputable like Garland Equine, even the second-hand market for imported saddles, be very cautious. Have someone knowledgeable give you advice. I'm happy if you drop me a message, I'll give you advice. Lizelle Garland, Sarah Jane McCrindle, they're all happy to, they're very open with giving advice on saddles, because all of us that ride Western have seen the damage from a badly fitting saddle or an unbalanced saddle. Please speak to someone that's knowledgeable when it comes to buying a second-hand saddle or an unknown brand. I will recommend the Franco saddles and the Liversage saddles because I've had personal experience with them. Anything else I want to see firsthand on the horse before I'd ever recommend it. Okay, so my saddle is the Franco Cliff Wave. Fantastic, nice wide saddle where I can use a shimming system and fit it to a bunch of different horses. It is on the heavy side, so because it's a roping saddle. If you want a lighter saddle, Franco make the Atacama, which is a lighter version of this, and it's actually easier to adjust sizing wise. As Western saddles go, you don't really get much adjustability, but the Francos have come up with an adjustability system which works on movable pads. So the Franco Enduro, the Franco Namib and the Franco Atacama Franco Saddlery all have movable pads. My preference is the Atacama and the Cliff Wade, purely because of where your legs lie. The Enduro is great for outrights, and when you're working on finesse stuff, I prefer an Atacama or even down to the Herzen, but that's not as adjustable. And the Liversarges that I've seen that I like are their Liversage trail riders are great. But the thing with both Francos and Liversage is they can do a proper fit for you, as opposed to just going and buying one off the shelf. Ben from Franco's is amazing with coming out, and when he's doing a custom build, I've sat with him for 3 hours doing a saddle fit and on a young horse where he made provisions for every eventuality that's going to come into place as the horse grows. I haven't been present for Leon Liversage or Carlo Liversage saddle fitting, but the feedback I've seen and when I've seen them on horses is phenomenal. So those are the two local manufacturers that I'm happy to give my absolute as a recommendation without having to see the horse with the saddle. Anything else, speak to a professional, get it fitted by a professional, and check it out before you buy it. You'll notice the prices on Western saddles are higher than English saddles in terms of the intermediate range. Yes, your higher range English saddles are still expensive, but for your lower range they are higher. But a well-made Franco or Liversage or one of the imports from Garland Equine, they're going to last you generations, not years, not decades, generations. You cannot compare it to buying an English saddle that needs to be reflocked every couple of months. Great guys, if you've got any more questions, one of the things that we get people confused on is if you're going to ride in a rope halter, which I recommend as a starting point, make sure you're not riding with contact. You're putting a lot of pressure on your horse, and they're going to get dulled to that pressure if you're riding in a rope halter. So this weekend I was up in Mpumalanga, and a lot of people have had the idea behind going bitless and have gone for a bitless bridle as their first option. Now, a bitless bridle is very much like the flat halters, where there's a constant pressure and only a slight dynamic change when you pick up. So my suggestion would be prepare your horse's foundations in a rope halter. If you're going to be riding English, like classical dressage, and you want to ride in a proper English looking halter, then absolutely a light rider is great once your horse is responding to your seat and legs perfectly. So you're not having to pick up a hard pressure on them, because that is just spread out over on the long ones, on something like a light rider where it spreads the pressure on a wider point where it doesn't have the knots. So it is crucial to have basics in place before you use a bridle like that. I personally don't love mechanical hackamores, purely because you lose a lot of your lateral. For me, what I do is I do my foundations in a rope halter, and then I have a Bazal based hackamore, which is known as a traditional hackamore, and that is our advancing point. We will talk a little bit more about a Bazal based hackamore in further videos. And legal wise, legalities, you are actually allowed to compete, even show jumping, in a Bazal based hackamore. In Europe there's a guy competing in Grand Prix level show jumping in a Bazal based hackamore. So a lot of people are under the perception that you can't compete bitless in classes like show jumping. You 100% can, but make sure you've got your horse prepared. Obviously eventing, you have that dressage phase, so you will need to have your horse introduced to a snaffle if you're going to do affiliated eventing. Great, as I said, got any questions about equipment or any other questions you'd like, drop us a message. Most of our ideas for these videos come from questions you guys ask us. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like this video, share it, and then we'll keep doing interesting videos for you guys. Cheers.